Welcome back to the channel. As usual, I am your host, sellssi. And we are still getting more reactions on the Ghana Black Star squad that was named just yesterday by Coach Chris Hughton, a provisional 55-man squad list that caused a lot of conversations ongoing. 11 locally based players called up into the national team. Some new faces, West Bromwich Albion man Thomas Asante, and a few others. Reactions are coming in, including the inclusion of Tariq Lamptey of Brighton and Hove Albion. Roberto De Zerbo, the coach of Brighton, has accused Chris Hughton of being someone who doesn't watch the league. We hear why he said that. We'll also talk about Thomas Partey's inclusion. He says, Chris Hughton that is, that Arsenal cannot deny the Ghanaian from representing his country. European clubs have no right to do that, basically. And talked about Kudus Mohamed's position in his current club side. He feels that he will eventually have to move to his rightful number 10 position, despite thriving on the right hand side. We'll look at all that today. As usual, subscribe if you have not. Click on the notification bell to get more updates. The 13th African Games, all African Games, will kick off next year in March, and Ghana are the host. The Minister of Youth and Sport has estimated that we are expecting over 5 billion viewers all over the world for this All Africa Games. The World Cup, mind you, just ended last year, and it attracted 5 billion viewers. So the All Africa Games set to be the World Cup numbers. Let's have a listen to what the Minister of Youth and Sports said on the floor of Parliament concerning the All Africa Games.
We are expecting over 5,000 athletes, 3,000 officials, volunteers, 2,000 volunteers, and spectators in thousands. In terms of online and global viewing, we are expecting more than 5 billion because we are partnering with the Olympic Channel as one of the media partners that will be broadcasting the sporting facilities.
Yeah, so you have the minister there talking about the All Africa Games surpassing the numbers of the World Cup. It will be interesting to see how they achieve that and if that does happen. On to Chris Hughton and Roberto De Zerbo. He says the Ghana coach probably does not want the Premier League. Let's have a listen to his exact words in the pre-match press conference ahead of Brighton's game this weekend.
And maybe the coach of Ghana doesn't watch the Premier League because I don't know how much time we are playing without Tariq Lamptey, and if he want to play with Lamptey, I'm happy for Tariq, but I don't know, because he's not available to play with Brighton. How can he play with Ghana?
True. Yeah, you had Roberto De Zerbo, the Brighton manager, accusing Chris Hughton of not watching the Premier League. Because why are you calling up a player who has not played with us for a while? How will he play for Ghana when he has not been playing for Brighton and Hove Albion? And I think he did not put across his words well. It was quite a dig at Chris Hughton and telling him he doesn't do his job well. I think that was not the way to do it. Probably a better way to communicate what he wanted to say. But basically, a Brighton and Hove Albion man, Tariq Lamptey, has been out with injury for a while now. And being called up to the national team when he has been out, especially the tournament, for the very first time for him, like the African Cup of Nations, with so much physicality and all its nuances, it would surprise anyone if he is called up and he's not playing regular club football. It's quite surprising. I was quite surprised myself when I saw him in there, but I assumed that Chris had done some groundwork and knew what he was talking about when he named him in the team. Apparently, the coach De Zerbo has a dug at him and said he probably does not watch the Premier League and doesn't probably do his job well. Not the right way to communicate your frustration with a player who is injured being called, but he put the message across and we got it loud and clear. Tariq Lamptey will not be in the final. That is it there with Tariq Lamptey. Unfortunately, his coach thinks he will not be called up. He will not make it because he hasn't been playing regularly for them. Let me know your thoughts in the comments box on how he communicated that in this pre-match presser. My next story has to do with Thomas Partey, and Coach Chris Hughton on TalkSport yesterday said European clubs really don't have a choice. Partey will be at the Afcon and they will have to release players for the African Cup of Nations, which is an international competition. Let's have a listen to what he had to say concerning the release of players like Thomas Partey, who are currently injured.
I don't think it's a debate. The reality is it's a choice. Yes, we have an African Cup of Nations in the month of January. This is when a particular team, a particular country, want their players turning up for camp. You know, they don't have a choice. You know, I think what can happen and what has always happened is a relationship between clubs. And there will be some associations, some countries that will have an association with a club that maybe allows a particular player to come, 2 days later than the others.
Right, flex and bend a bit.
Yes, and that's something that's I think has always been the case.
So you heard him there talking about Partey in there and how clubs really don't have a choice. It's not something they can say. They will not really allow a player to go. But we've seen it in the past before. We've seen it happen before. Maybe Chris has some inside information we don't know about, but we've seen it happen before where clubs deny players or give them the ultimatum to choose between play for their countries and their club sides. And we see how it affects them when they get back. Mikel Obi has spoken about it in relation to representing Nigeria at the Olympic Games. Thomas Partey inclusion in the Ghana national team is it no doubt. Chris Hughton is confident clubs cannot, but as I said, we've seen it happen in the past before where clubs deny, and as I mentioned the example there, Mikel Obi was a perfect one. He himself talked about it in his recent podcast. Finally, we'll talk about Kudus Mohammed and Chris Hughton insistence that Kudus will still move back in through the middle despite thriving on the right-hand side for West Ham United. This is where I have an issue with Chris Hughton. He's working for his club side. He's thriving there. Why do you want to force the player into a position where probably he does not thrive well? But let's have a listen to what he thinks of Kudus Mohammed's best position, especially him thriving on the right-hand side with West Ham United this season.
He's a very talented player.
Yes,
there's no doubt. Came through a wonderful academy in Ghana. Obviously had a good period of time at Ajax where they moved his position. The type of player he is, you look at him as a 10 because he's a goal scorer. You want to get him close to goal, but he has had good success play on the right hand side. I think what David has done, and I must admit, I was delighted when he went there because what I knew would happen with him is that I think particularly with the way that David sets up his teams, I knew he would put him into a structure because there is a train of thought that Kudus is the type of player that you want to give him some relative freedom in the way that he plays. But if I'm looking at him at this moment, playing on that right hand side, I think David has adapted his role where he has given him as much freedom as he could and still he's producing. So I think eventually, I think he would be a 10, a form of a 10 somewhere, but he's somebody that's very talented right across that forward line.
An asset.
Or as an asset.
There's no free positions anymore, Chris.
There aren't. But there are a way of playing or individuals that perhaps just are allowed a little bit more freedom than others.
Chris Hughton there talking about Kudus Mohammed's best position. He says, yes, he's thriving on the right-hand side. He's doing well there, but he still feels that through the middle is best for him. Where do you think is Kudus Mohammed's best position? Let me know what you think in the comments box. And do you agree with Coach Chris Hughton's assessment of that one there? So that has been it for today. Talking to you about some reactions coming in after the Black Star squad 55-man provisional list was named yesterday by Coach Chris Hughton. CAF made it officially known to the media. Also talking to you about the Zerbi, talking about Chris Hughton not knowing or watching the Premier League, because how can you call a player who does not play regularly for his club side? We've also been talking about the All-Africa Games. It begins in March next year, and the minister is hoping for 5 billion people to watch the All-Africa Games considering the partnerships they are having. Thomas Partey, Kudus Mohammed, and everything in between. Let me know what you think in the comments box. I'll see you guys in the next one. Have a great week.